Hello, everybody. Welcome to my quick class today. My name is Brenda Miller, and I'm Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Basking Ridge, New Jersey. And I go live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time to share a card idea and also some other great information. And today is no exception. I have a very simple card. However, I'm going to teach a technique, and also, we're going to talk about something that's coming up later this month. So let's get started. Uh, Before we do, let me just mention that, let's see, I have class on my Zoom class is coming up at the end of the month. So if that's something that you're interested in, I do have several packets left, and we still have, it's almost 2 weeks. So if you need it mailed, it probably will make it. So I am still accepting people signing up if you want to. So, okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Let me switch over to my desktop and share with you the card that I would like to make today. And that is this one. It's a sympathy card, but we can always use sympathy cards. And unfortunately, lately I've found that I need more than, I wish I did, right? And just so that you know, this is made with the Something Fancy bundle, and it uses the Something Fancy dies to create the great sentiment die cut for the front, and there are plenty of other options that you could use. So that being said, I really wanted to talk about how we do these borders. Now, this stamp set is called Decorative Borders, and we actually got this at our most recent event. All the attendees got this stamp set, which was very exciting. And at first I was like, what am I going to do with this? And then I saw that somebody did this technique, which I haven't done in such a long time, and that is using our blender pens. So those of you who have not been introduced to our blender pens before, let me show you what they are. They're basically clear ink dual-tipped pens, and you get 3 in a package. But what's inside of this, it's a little bit wet, not too wet, so it's not like an aqua painter. It's just a little bit wet, much like our markers. However, the ink is kind of invisible, and it's a fluid that allows color to move just a little bit, not a whole lot, and I'm going to show you that, but also set that color. Okay, so that's something that you wouldn't get just from using water and a paintbrush or an aqua painter. So let's go ahead and get started. So I took one of the stamps, one of the larger stamps, and here it is. And you can see that this is well used because we did this card in class last week. And I'm taking a piece of basic white cardstock, and this is a little smaller than what I usually do because I'm going to be mounting this with a border around it. So it is 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches, and I'm going to use the Evening Evergreen ink pad. Now, we're going to talk more about this later, but Evening Evergreen is one of our in colors, and so that means that it is every year we come out with 5 in colors, and this is one of the 5 that came out not this year, this catalog year, but the catalog year before. So it's a 2021 to 2023 in color. And that means that it is retiring at the end of April. So there's only limited time left to get this ink pad and its reinker. Okay. But again, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, so we're going to open up the Evening Evergreen ink pad, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp this on my cardstock in 2 corners. Note that I inked it up by placing the block upside down and taking my ink pad to it. It's just enough bigger or as big as the ink pad that I didn't want to take a chance of rubbing the ink off or missing it. And also you see that it's very easy to catch the edges. So, even when I was inking it up, I caught some of the edges. So you just have to be careful when stamping it down. So here we go. I'm just going to stamp it straight up and down and carefully pick it up. And so here we have that gorgeous image. And I'm going to do that one more time in the opposite corner. And just because of where I have my camera, I'm going to flip it upside down just so that I can see it a little bit better from my vantage point. And I'm going to pick it up. Oops, let's do that again. Do, do, do. So I did it exactly the way I said I wasn't going to, just for speed. And I'm going to flip it around again. You know, when you try to do this for television, you have it all laid out and something goes wrong. And we did have this problem a little bit. You have to make sure that you get the middle and edges and not rock your stamp. So here we go. So now that we have that, I'm going to take my blender pen and I am just going to pull the color. And watch what happens. I don't know if you can see, but because our inks are water-based, so our ink pads are water-based inks, the fluid inside this tool is actually picking up the color from what we just stamped, and I'm just pulling it into the center of the image. And what's beautiful about this is that you get a very subtle color, and I'm going to pick it up for the camera in 1 second. I want to have enough colored so that you can see, but also it allows for the highlighting or the shading based upon where there's more ink. Okay, so as I do this, you'll see here, I'm pulling the color in and it's coloring in the image. Now, blender pens have been around for a super long time, but I haven't used them recently because we've been so busy using the beautiful blending markers that we have, the Stampin' Blends, and they make for beautiful colors. But these blender pens can also do that. It gives a little bit of a different look, and I'm just going to keep coloring. And I want to say hi to Linda and to Rita. Thanks. I'm glad that you like this technique. I was very excited that I taught you guys something new when you were in class. Those are some of the ladies who attend my in-person classes. So thank you for joining me today. But as I go and color all these in, you can see that it's picking up the color. And if I were to color elsewhere, you can hardly tell, but it does retain the color just for a very little bit on the tip of the blender pen. Now, usually when I use blender pens, or have in the past, I've always dedicated one tip, because remember, you get 3 of these pens in a package. I dedicate one tip to each maybe color family, meaning I have one tip that colors greens, one tip that colors blues, reds, etc. And that just helps me from muddling the colors, but it's really not necessary to do that. I've also done it where I just wing it, and the ends of the tips of the markers become like a black, because I use all different colors with it. Because when you go to a scrap of paper, when you want to switch colors, the color all comes off and you can start fresh with another color. Now, we're going to finish this card, and then I'm going to show you some other things that you can do with your blender pens. So anyway, so here we go. We have it all colored in, and that did not take me very long. And you'll notice it just pulls out the color, and again, you can see right here where it's darker because there's more ink here, and then it's lighter. And if you're an artist, which I am not, you could focus on creating white space in the center of your images or where the light would be hitting. A lot of people are able to do that. I am not one of those people, but it allows for that kind of technique. So let's put our card together. As I said, it's a very simple card. I'm just folding my evening evergreen card in half, and I'm going to take a plain piece of basic white. Whoops. Use my Stampin' Seal. Put a little bit on to put this on the inside of the card, and of course it runs out right then and there. Perfect. I have another one, and I will take that, but you can't make this stuff up. You cannot make it up. So again, you'll see that I left a little bit more of a colored border on the inside, and that was mostly because when I put out my supplies for classes, I I don't like to confuse people with too many different sizes of the same color paper, because inevitably people use the wrong size. That not their fault. It's hard to tell the difference when they're that close. And so, whoops, let me get rid of that one. And we'll lay this on top. And again, I'm using that layer. This color is Soft Succulent, and it is also an in color that is going away. So now we have, these are the dies that I cut. I cut these out using the ones I showed earlier for the Something Fancy dies. Just so happens I have Something Fancy bundle class tonight that people have signed up for. If you have an interest in doing a bundle class, you should be checking out my calendar. I do one every month. This month is the Something Fancy. And again, I'm just going to use With Deepest Sympathy. Put it on there. I'm going to use regular adhesive to adhere this to my layer. And that's what's beautiful about the Something Fancy dies, is that they pretty much have 2 or even 3 shapes in different shapes with 2 or 3 different sizes in those shapes. So I added that to the card using dimensionals. Actually, I can leave that open. And then lastly, I'm just going to take this ribbon is this is Soft Succulent, and it is Satin Shimmer ribbon. And this is in the main catalog and will probably be going away with the new catalog. They usually rotate our ribbons. Pretty much every catalog, every so often, there's 1 or 2 that get carried over, but mostly not. And I'm going to use one of our old scissors to cut it. There we go. Usually I use my Stampin' Snips, but they must be upstairs. And I'm going to adhere this with a glue dot. I just find glue dots to be the easiest way to adhere ribbons. And what I like to do is to here's the glue dot. You see it on there? It's actually on the inside of the roll these days. And I just take my ribbon, I put it right onto the glue dot so that it picks it up. It's on the back here. And then I place that down. It amazes me how many people, I just never talk about how I apply my glue dots. And I seem to be teaching that a lot lately. People didn't know. So that's how I made this card. But let's go ahead and do another border that allows for some different kind of coloring. I'm going to take that decorative borders again, and I'm going to remove the stamp that I had on my block because it does require a larger block. Just the nature of this stamp set. And there we go. I just put that on there. And I am going to use, the same green, and I'm just going to stamp this on here. I'm not going to actually make a card with this, so we'll just let it go down. Okay, so here you see, it's a little bit of a different look, and this is this flower. I could have used the same one, but I didn't. And instead of using just one color, I'm going to use 2 colors. So to get the green leaves, I could continue to do what I was doing, which was pulling the color. And that's fine. But what I could also do is use my stamp pad my Stampin' Block as a palette, and I could put down some color, some ink onto the block. And so I'm going to do some green and I used Melon Mambo, and I'm just going to pick up the color right from the block. Okay, and it gets the ink onto the edge of my pen, and you can see that I'm laying down the color, and this color is much darker. Okay, but again, as I pull and as I use it, it gets lighter. So I'm going to do another leaf here. Okay, and we get that going. And then when I want to change colors, I just come over to a scrap piece of paper and rub until it goes clear, and then I can pick up another color. So I'm going to do the same thing with the Melon Mambo, and I'm going to color in my flowers. So now I can get 2 different colors, or as many as I want. And when I do this, I like to go over the lines that are already there because it comes out so dark when I first pick up the color, and then it will run to a lighter color. And so because I meant to use a black ink pad, but I left it over on my other desk. And you can see that the green runs a little bit into the pink, but if you use the Memento black or the Stays on black, that would work. And you would get less running. And as you can see, it's really not that big of a deal because this pink is so much brighter. Okay, so I'm just picking up the ink straight from my block that where I had rubbed the ink pad onto the block. Okay, so here we have some of that color. Now, if you are brave enough, if you want, you can just take it straight from the ink pad. And I do that from the edges, and you get the same effect without having to muddy up and dirty up a block. And as you can see, you know, it starts out, it comes out dark, and then it goes light as you color more. Okay, so you can do a lot of shading, and it's very precise. You can see that the tip on this is very pointy. See? There we go. And you can see now the tip is red or pink, and you can see here how I'm rubbing off the color, and then now it's clear. Now it did stain. This will now forever have pink on it. The green tends to come off better than the pinks and the reds. But once it colors clear, it stays clear, and you can continue with that. So here you have some different ways of coloring. And then I want to show you one more way. So that's using the inks. Another way you could do it is using reinkers. So that you have to be very careful with because that's a very potent, very dark ink. You only want to use that sparingly. That's probably the least likely way I would do it, but the one other way that you can use the blending pens is to use it with our soft pastels. Now, we used to have a whole pastel palette. Now we have these pastel sticks. They come like this, and I like to keep them in their box because they look so pretty. And this is my favorite way of using pastels. You can pick up the color straight from the stick and then go and color it on. Now, I should say, this must be a new one. The edges of the pastels have kind of a coating on it, and I probably have not used this one. So I'm just scraping with my fingernail just to get to the actual chalk under there. And that's what pastels truly are chalks. And once you pick it up, you are now coloring with the pastels. And so you can see it's very light. I'm coloring it away from the image because I kept picking up the green, and I wanted you to see the difference in the color. See how that's a different color green? This is really a granny apple green. The pastels have 2, 4, 6, 8 different colors. So obviously you have more that you can do with the markers, assuming you have those color markers or ink pads. I'm sorry, I meant ink pads. So those are the different ways that you can use our blender pens. And again, this is something I had forgotten about. You know, we haven't been using them. It's a tool that's been around forever, and really very useful, and something I suggest that you get if you like to color. Now, I want to just talk about our colors. So Stampin' Up! Has 40 different colors plus 10 in colors, and the regular colors that we have, they are part of our regular collections, and our regular collections are called brights, neutrals, regals, and subtles. Also some basics, but we don't have ink pads in all of those colors. So I'm just going to go back to this page. So in our brights collection, we have 10 colors, and what's happening at the end with our new catalog is that they're doing what they call a color refresh. And that color refresh involves bringing in some new colors that maybe are more popular and getting rid of some of those colors that haven't been selling and that we haven't been using. So there's a lot of speculation about which colors are going to be retired and which colors are going to be brought in. And that's not to say, too, that some of the 21 to 2023 colors could be incorporated into the main collection. I personally am hoping for Evening Evergreen, but that's just me. Actually, Fresh Freesia too is one of my favorites, but the reason I wanted to talk about this is because if you have ink pads, or if you want any of the colors in particular that we offer, I highly recommend that you get them as soon as possible. For the in colors, I recommend doing it before the end of this month. And for the regular colors, on March 29th, we will be notified which colors are retiring. And so I will have a posting about that as soon as I know. And once I do, I highly recommend if there are any colors that are retiring that you want, you make sure you get them and make sure that you have the re-inkers for them. So that being said, I know that I'm asking for sales, and I don't mean to do that, but I want to make sure that you have what you like, okay? And make sure that you have that to use going forwards. Now, one thing I do is I try very hard to use only current colors so that anything that I'm showing is something that you can get, okay? Now, as of right now, Evening Evergreen is currently available and not in low inventory. So that is something that you can get today, and definitely through, I would say, March 29th. And after that, it's going to be kind of a free-for-all. So again, take a look at the colors that you have and see what you need reinkers for, and make sure that you get them as early as possible, because you don't want to end up with ink pads that in short order you might not be able to use if you run out of ink. Okay, so with that little commercial, if you have any questions or any concerns, please feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to help you get that order in, to make sure that you have what you need. And otherwise, I will see you next Wednesday at 3 p.m. So thank you so much for joining me, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.